Alright, yes, so guess we better stop that and let's turn on some visuals. Hey everyone, yeah, it's me, just without the beard today. It's in for a service. So, typing and creaking. I know, I got one of these really, fancy, like, racing chair thing, because it was supposed to be really comfortable, and it just squeaks terribly. I don't like it. I would not recommend. Hi everyone. Welcome to today's live stream. Just FYI, this is going to be I'm going to be going on a 2-week break after today, so the next live stream won't be up until the 21st of April, around there. Just I'm out of the country, so I can't really live stream from where I'm going to be. Oh, hang on, that's a little hot. Let's turn that down. Yep, I don't want to burst anyone's eardrums here. Great. So, what are we doing today? Well, today I just thought it'd be good to look at this really cool effect that you might have seen in old school comics. And it's very simple to set up, but what I like about it is that it will take us through a few things in Grease Pencil that are really pivotal to understanding how Grease Pencil works, what it's capable of, and how you can most efficiently use it. So if we were to take a look at this Grease Pencil object, let's go into 3D view. I've got a paper background that I created a few weeks ago. What is Kirby Krackle? Okay. Now I'm hoping I can bring this up on screen. What's going on? No, don't do that. Don't do that, Steam. Why? Okay, got it. Right, I'm hoping I can bring this up and not get into too much trouble. You would have seen these sorts of comics, right? Think old school Marvel, Silver Surfer, this kind of effect. These really cool kind of dots. It's affectionately known as Kirby Krackle because Jack Kirby was the illustrator on the early Marvel books that were penned by Stan Lee. So we're talking, 1960s era Fantastic Four and Thor and Avengers and all that sort of stuff. And this just became a really iconic style. And you see it every now and then. By hand, it's always been a fun thing to do because you can just sit there and go so zen. And so it's the kind of effects that I've really enjoyed putting together. Let me see now. There and there. Let's just stick that back there. Okay, good. Right. Bugger. Can't answer you right now. And creating an Ingress pencil is really, really easy. I know I keep saying that. I think I should really just start going ahead and doing it. So you can see here how this is a single object, and there are these what look like a lot of dots and lines, and when we look through here, we get that effect, and it's even a little bit faded. This is utilizing just 3 layers, and I haven't drawn a thing. Well, I have, but you don't even need a stylus to do this. It's also employing a set of modifiers, and it's employing, in this case, one colorize effect to get that transparency, right? And why I use the effect rather than opacity, I will also get to as well. So why don't we go ahead and start this process again? I'll just make this invisible. Do we need this empty? Well, yeah, we do, but we obviously want to create this empty. I'll leave it there for now because we're going to need it anyway. So I'm going to go Shift A and let's create a new blank grease pencil object. And on this grease pencil object, I'm just going to go into front view here, and I'm going to make my camera invisible. And you'll see that I've got this empty object here, I'm just going to remove the rotation for a second. This empty is going to drive an array modifier. And on in Grease Pencil, modifiers work very much like they do for other objects and curves and text, but they are delegated specifically to Grease Pencil objects. It's got its own modifier stack, and a lot of them work in very much the same way. So now what we need is a line. So I'm going to go into draw mode. Wait, we need Grease Pencil object selected, go into draw mode. I'm going to hit N so we can see, and we're just going to use the default ink brush. Now, if this is entirely optional, but this material for black, I'm just going to go with black here, is just black solid line. You don't need to add a color attribute, but just for the purposes of my demonstration, I'm going to go and add this black color attribute just in case we want to change it later. And I'm going to go down to this line tool. And what we'll do is we will click, and I'll hold down Shift so we can constrain the movement of this line to one axis, right? If I go up, it will constrain it to the Z axis. If I go across, it's just the X, and it also does it on a 45 degree. Yeah, it's kind of fat, but we're going to fix this. Okay, and then I'm going to hit Enter to commit. I'm going to go into tab mode, and if I select here I've got 2 dots, so it mustn't have been too large. I'm just going to move this out as far as I can. Okay, so obviously we don't need all of that line for the particular camera that we've got, but I'm going to, make sure that there's enough length there. You can see his paper settings here. Thank you. I think that's Amber. Thank you, Amber. I'll put that link in the notes below so that you can get that paper texture as well. Now this has got 2 dots. There are chances that if you're following along, you're going to get a few subdivided points there. In which case, for the purposes of just creating this first line, I'm going to dissolve these. So box select while in edit mode, just the middle ones. Go hit X, and I hit dissolve. Not points, because that's going to delete the points. We want to dissolve, and that just leaves those last 2 points connected. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this point, I'm going to hit G and X and move this away from the center just a little bit. Then I'm going to go Alt S, and I'm going to scale this to 0. So we got a very thin point and a not so thin point at the end. And if you want, you can even scale this a little bit further. Now, I've got my proportional fall-off tool there. We don't need it right now. Now, this is going to create our first effect, which is that nice radial zoom line type of effect. And the way we do that is by adding an array modifier. We don't have to duplicate and rotate and all that sort of stuff. We can just go add modifier, array, and this is when that empty comes in handy. We want not relative offset, but object offset. And I'm going to open that up, and I'm going to eyedropper tool that empty that's there. Now, if you haven't got one, you just create one, do this process. Right now, if I go into object mode and I select that empty and I rotate this around about 5 degrees. Okay, oh, hello. What's going on here? It's shifted this out a little bit. Right, never mind. We'll find out why in a second. Aha! Why is it doing this? What's wrong with this empty, and why? Hang on, is this? Shouldn't be doing this. Because it should be rotating from the center. Okay, there's a scale here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to apply scale to the empty. Yep, there we go. This is often a problem when rotating or using an array modifier with the object, because it takes all of the offset properties: scale, rotation, position. So for instance, if I was to move this empty, you can see how the position affects that array. And what we want is it to be perfectly centered and in the same spot as the grease pencil object. And so now what we want, I'm going to zoom out a little here. I want this array modifier to go as far as I can. Now this has capped out at 50, but I know that we can go 72 when we get a full rotation, or we can go even higher and we can get other rotations. They're actually duplicating on top of each other, and so we can say maybe go 180. You won't see it because it's offsetting exactly 5 degrees for every instance. And so every duplicate that's gone around 72 instances is then sitting on top. The way we see them now is to randomize, and this is the fun part. So I'm going to go randomize, and I'm going to rotate, I think it's the Y rotation. Yep. Right. And if we randomize that Y rotation, we begin to see some random placement of those extra instances. And we can fiddle around with this, right? So we can see, okay, 72 is good, but if we double up on that, then we can get some even better results until we get a nice kind of randomization, which looks nice. And now I think we can offset them in the X direction, because remember, the line is only in the X direction. So this gives us that nice little sort of sunburst speed lines. Now, if we were to take a look through the camera and crop everything out in a square or whatever that camera setting is, now we've got these really cool anime speed lines. And the best thing about it is because everything's random, we can also random seed it. And so this can be random in, you know, as many variations as there are seeds. And so whatever seed we put that on, it's not going to matter. Now, you've heard me mention before that there's a difference between modifiers and effects. The key difference is that modifiers, you can influence a specific part of a grease pencil object. You can, for instance, influence just a layer. In this case, we've only got one layer. That's the GP layer, and I'm going to select that. All right, I'm going to go GP layer there. But we've also got pass, material, and material pass, which I'm going to get to in the next step. So going back to our grease pencil properties, I'm going to call this grease pencil layer line. Lines. Sorry, and it's decided to take away that array modifier because it's going, well, where is this lines layer? So let's take that away and let's re-enable that on the array modifier. So I'm liking where that's going. Now we want some dots. Now for the dots, I need two materials. One, I want to cut out a bunch of dots to give spaces to where that Kirby Krackle is going to sit. It looks so much cooler this way, believe me. And then we want to apply the dots as well. So I'm going to add two more materials. The first material that I'm going to add is just a dot stroke, and that's the stroke line, but with the line type set instead of line to dots. Right? That's exactly what you expect. And the other material I've created is a dot stroke, but this is a holdout material. Maybe I shouldn't call it I should call this holdout because the abbreviation doesn't look quite right, and it's not exactly PG, is it? So it's still a dots material with one exception, and that is that it's got this holdout. It removes the color from underneath this stroke by using it as a mask. So whatever we do, whatever we draw with a holdout material kind of erases what's underneath it. And it's a really cool thing if we want to get this kind of effect. Right, so I'm going to use this holdout material, going to duplicate the lines layer instead of just adding another one and doing the same process again. So I'm going to go to this specials menu. Anytime you see this little arrow, it's a specials menu, and I'm going to go duplicate. And I'm going to call this dots spaces, let's say. Okay, now I'm going to make this line holdout material invisible. Now because this layer has changed its name, the array modifier is not referencing it. Just going to check the stream health. It seems to be good. Okay, and I'm going to select that dot spaces line, because we duplicated, we now have a line that is sitting on top. And what I want is to have a lot of dots along this line. So I'm going to subdivide this. The menu, the dialog box for subdivision comes up, and I can subdivide this a few times, right? 4 should be good. And we can grab this, and with our proportional fall off, yeah, I'm going to just go connected only just in case. I'm going to grab that in the X direction and bring this in a little bit, and maybe Shift S. You know what? Let's do this random. Let's go connected only, but let's do a random scale. And so now we can randomly scale those with Shift S. But actually first, I'm going to go smooth just to get a little bit of the right kind of variation on that. And now we'll go random, maybe select a center one, and randomly scale this up a little bit. And then scale the outside one a little as well. Right, so we get some randomness. Now this is still referencing the just straight black line material. What we wanted to do is to reference the dot stroke holdout material. So with that selected, and in edit mode, we select all of the points on this stroke, and we go assign. We don't see anything because it's there, but that's because we've got our lines invisible. But now when we bring those lines back, I'm just going to go into front view so we can see it. Now you can see how that layer is masking out anything underneath. That's what the holdout material does. And now we want to sort of randomize these dots a little bit, as well as have an array on it. So I'm going to go back to my modify properties. I'm going to duplicate the array modifier, right? Duplicate. And I'm going to call this array dots. And just as before, we can change the influence from lines to dot spaces. And so now it's doing exactly the same thing, but on the dot spaces. Right? When do we get our GP? That is a good question, Jeff. Yeah, that'll be what's producing the live streams next time. It'll just be ChatGPT live streaming to you instead of me. So, okay, let's just get back to this. We've got this on dot spaces. We can tinker with some of the settings, right? And because it's a different array modifier, we can get some different settings, including this rotation, maybe even the scale. Let's see what happens if we scale some of these other... Okay, that's not doing anything. We can even change the random seed a little bit. But what I also want is maybe a little bit of noise on here. So I'm going to collapse that. I'm going to add that noise modifier, making sure that that influence is set to dot spaces. And now we can change the position of that noise. We can change the thickness of that. We can change the scale of that noise as well. We can sort of see what's going on there. It's really cool. We can even, that's a little eye bleedy. Change the noise offset. What's it got on randomize? Do we need the randomize on this? I guess it's already random. Right. And so that's changing that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to edit mode, maybe scale this back just a touch. Maybe bring that in a little bit until we've got these lovely spaces to now put our dots in. Okay, so we've added the second layer of that effect. So let's go ahead and we'll now duplicate the dot spaces layer. And this is just going to be our black dots. So again, with dot spaces selected, I'm going to go specials, duplicate. And I'm going to call this just plain dots. We will have to go into edit mode. We will have to change the material from dot stroke holdout to dot stroke. And when we assign that, it's just going to, oh, hang on. We've selected everything. We don't want everything. We just want everything on dots. So I'm going to lock off the 2 layers below. Okay, now we can go into edit mode. Just that line there. Great. Now let's assign those dots. And when we go out of tab mode, now we've got a line with just dots, which is really, really cool. So now I kind of like what the array and the noise is doing to the spaces. And I don't want to make another array dots and another noise. I want that modifier to be able to talk to both those layers. Is this possible? Turns out it is. Here's how we do it. Let's go into our grease pencil object, and under dot spaces and dots, let's go down to where it says relations. And we're going to give this a pass index. We can make this whatever we want. To make it obvious, I'm going to make this a pass index of 2 on dots and dot spaces. This number is arbitrary. All it needs is to be different from any pass index for anything else that you may use as a pass index, and especially lines. Especially if we're going to be using a pass index for the layers that we want that modifier to look at. So both dots and dot spaces now have a pass index set to 2. We go back to our modifiers. We go to array dots. And under influence, we can go pass index of 2. Right? And so now we don't even need that layer. Now we just are using the pass index as our influence and not the layer. We can do this for the noise as well. So we get rid of the influence on the layer and we go pass influence of 2. Pass index influence of 2. Problem being is now that the dots are exactly on top of the spaces, and so it's basically blocking them out. So now we can just tinker with the actual dots. So I'm just going to lock off dot spaces, and I'm going to go Alt-S and maybe just scale these down a little bit. And now we've got these dots that have spaces around it. That's looking kind of cool. Do I want them even more random? How would we make them more random without... I guess we'd have to put a noise modifier on just the dots and not the dot spaces, and that would definitely randomize things. Let's see if there's another way of doing this. Let's go with thickness, multiple stroke. What would be good? What did I do on the last one? I did have 2 noises. Okay, cool. That's what I did. So maybe we just go with another noise modifier. Okay, and this one we use just the dots influence. And now we can change, not the strength, the thickness of them. Randomize that. We can randomize the position a little bit. All right. We can noise scale would be good. Noise offset a little bit more. Right. And now we've got this wonderful Kirby Krackle effect that we can further tweak if we needed to. What I'm not liking about this is that this dots line, I think it needs to be brought out just a little bit, so it's not crossing over too much. And I think some of that noise might be a little bit too harsh, perhaps. Maybe it's on the rotation. The rotation's just a little bit too much. So maybe we just need it a little bit rotated. Oh man, that's... Okay. But you can sort of see how you can tinker with that until you get an effect that you really like. And every time you use this effect or this this object, we can just duplicate this set. You can then bake down these effects and then just use it. Now, What about that transparency? Why did I make the transparency an effect and not a modifier? Because there is an opacity effect. Here's what happens when we add that opacity effect, right? We go opacity. Can you see that as we drop the opacity factor, it actually gives us, it creates an opacity on all of the layers, right? If we were affecting the entire object. But we want this uniform, and so it's treating everything on a object by object basis, and it's doing exactly what that modifier is supposed to do. And even if we click on uniform opacity, it doesn't really do anything. And influencing it, doing several opacity things is just going to duplicate and make this a little bit messier. So what we want to do instead is we'll go down to Effect, and we go Colorize. And under Colorize, there's a mode called Transparent. Under Transparency, at 1, we get, obviously, complete opaqueness. But if we drop that down, it treats the entire thing as a mask. Okay, and so now we can have that transparency so that we can get this kind of look. And believe me, this renders absolutely beautifully. So I'm just going to hit Render on this, right? And now we've got this beautiful Kirby Krackle effect that we can modify and we can use as a background. We can draw the Silver Surfer or whatever character we want on top of this. And it just becomes this really great asset that you can even import into other projects and completely randomize it frame to frame or for whatever purposes you want. And I like that it's so random. And it's just generated using a few modifiers. So that's the effect. And hopefully this has sort of opened up your repertoire a little bit to show you how to use pass indexes, how to use different materials, how to just draw a simple line and use modifiers such as array and noise to further generate and randomize stuff inside of Grease Pencil. So look, thanks for watching, everyone. In these last few minutes, I just sort of want to point you guys to the direction of cgcookie.com, where if you are not a member, I highly urge you to become a member of cgcookie.com. Even free membership opens up things like the community forums. And we're still working on simulcasting these live streams onto the website. And so signing in to that sort of stuff will give you access to that kind of exclusive content. But of course, paid membership opens up a whole other level of stuff, but you can go there and read all about it over there. My name is Paul Kajeji. I'm one of the instructors over at CG Cookie, and I do have a course called Panels, which delves really deeply into Grease Pencil for the purposes of creating a comic book. But it is really a fantastic primer on using Grease Pencil and delving into all of the tools and techniques that are available to you in Grease Pencil. So that's all for me for now. I will see you in a couple of weeks. The next live stream will be on April 21st. So I hope to see you again when I get back. And I'm sure I'll have another awesome topic to discuss with you all. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye for now.